My name is Emily Rogan. I am the Senior Program Officer for the nonprofit organization United Policyholders. Thank you so much for joining me. We are going to be talking about questions to ask at Thanksgiving dinner so that you can keep the conversation flowing, focusing on preparedness and home insurance. So UP is a voice and an information resource for insurance consumers. And while Thanksgiving dinner might look a little different, the information that we can give you can keep that conversation flowing. So a few things that I want to have everybody think about as you're listening to the information we're giving is that we are a nonprofit. We don't sell insurance and we don't take any money from insurance companies. So I just want to make sure that you all know that we are giving you the straight scoop on insurance, and we are supported only by donations from community foundations and donations from individuals and businesses. Okay, so Thanksgiving dinner. I'm seeing that in the poll that the sides seem to be the favorite for everybody. I definitely agree with that for sure. So about United Policyholders, we are a nonprofit organization. We have 30 years of experience helping people make smart insurance decisions when they're buying insurance and helping them through the insurance claim process. We've done quite a bit of work in Colorado helping people after disasters through our Roadmap to Recovery program. We were there in the 4 Mile Canyon fire, the High Park fire in Woodland Heights area in the north of the state, and then in the south of the state in Colorado Springs in 2012 and 2013 for the Waldo Canyon fire and Black Forest, and then the flooding as well that followed. So we've done quite a bit of work in Colorado. Right now we're here with our preparedness program, helping you with the insurance shopping guidance. And then we also have a big role in advocacy, making sure that insurance is working for the people, not just for the insurance companies. And this talk is with a wonderful grant from the Denver Urban Area Security Initiative, so UWASI. And so they are allowing us to give this presentation to you throughout the state. This is a really great opportunity for us to be able to help people with their preparedness messages. So when we get to the dinner table or you're waiting around, one question you can ask is, did you stock up with anything during shelter in place? What did you buy more of? This is a good conversation starter because a good preparedness tip is to make sure that you are prepared to not only shelter in place, but also to evacuate if need be. So those are two different ways that people can get prepared, but we all have a little bit more experience sheltering in place now. And so one thing you can ask is, what did you buy more of? Was there something looking back that was a little silly of a purchase? Or was it just, the brass tacks of toilet paper, which is essential? Another question you can ask is, who have you helped recently? With social distancing and all, of the COVID shelter in place, there might have been someone that you reached out to, maybe with just a phone call, maybe to deliver groceries, but that person may need help after a disaster too. So if it was a family member or just a family friend, just keeping in mind that that person may also need help after a disaster. So, as you're just, sitting around talking, you can ask if there was someone that you had helped more during this time and do we have as a family a disaster plan for that person that we love? When we're talking about preparedness, there are 5 essential steps. You want to make sure you're getting alerts from either your local county or the state, making a plan to protect, where are you going to meet up if you need to? What is your plan? Putting a go bag together, as we talked, if you have to evacuate, but also building a box so that if you do have to shelter in place, that you have enough supplies on hand. And then also your plan to help friends and neighbors. So that is, the general preparedness messaging that is out there. But our organization has a lot of experience helping people after disasters and knowing that your plan can't stop there. There's a lot in terms of insurance that needs to be in place to help you get through the long-term recovery and be able to rebuild or replace your home. So we call that our tips from the trenches. And what we want you to know is that it's your insurance money. It's not going to be charitable or government aid. That is the #1 source that helps people rebuild after disasters. A lot of times we hear that FEMA is just going to come in and help, and they do come, but they're, the amount that they give is needs-based, and the maximum grant that they'll give is about $35,000. So that's not really enough to rebuild a home. So just keep that in mind. SBA loans take a long time and they need to be repaid. So that is a loan that you can get from the Small Business Administration, but to homeowners, not just to businesses. But again, it's a loan, it needs to be repaid. And then charitable aid generally covers your basic emergency needs, but not the cost of rebuilding. So those are just a few of our tips from the trenches, are the main information that we want you to know so that you know where we're coming from when we're really trying to help you with that insurance safety net. All right, so back to Thanksgiving. Likely there'll be football on TV, and that is always a good conversation starter because insurance companies almost always sponsor some sort of game. This is one of the funny ones with the hands of Allstate catching the field goal. But if you need a cue to start talking about insurance, the football game will provide that. So one thing you can do is you can play catch the fine print. So there will likely be an commercial about insurance, and see if you can catch the fine print when it comes up. So a lot of times, there'll be an advertisement and then it'll go really fast, but this product is not sold in Colorado. And see if you can catch it, see if there are any exclusions, or what is the difference between what they are saying in the ad and what they are saying in that fine print. So that's just one of the things you can do. And just remember that an advertisement for insurance is just an ad. The insurance that you buy, the insurance policy, is a legal contract, and it contains a ton of fine print. So to make sure that that fine print is what you think you have and what you need after a disaster, we want you to take these preparedness action steps. 1, dust off your policy. We want to make sure that you have a copy of your declarations page and the copy of your policy. Then we want you to contact your insurance agent and do an insurance checkup. And there's a link on the screen right now, uphelp.org/checkup, and that will give you questions to ask your insurance agent to make sure that you have the right kind and right amount of insurance. And then we want you to do a home inventory, do an inventory of your assets, whether it's a video or photos, a spreadsheet, but we want you to do that inventory and then store it offsite or online to make sure that it's there if you need it. Another question, which company has the best or worst customer service? Have you had some really bad customer service recently, or have you had some good customer service? Everybody has an experience with that in mind. So if you're sitting around and you have no idea what to talk about with somebody next to you, ask them about that. With insurance, after a disaster, a lot of times you may have multiple adjusters and they have different levels of experience. So you might have a good experience depending on if you have a seasoned adjuster who knows what's in a policy and how to adjust it properly, or if you have a newbie who is really just adjusting your claim within the 4 walls of the training that they've received, you might not have as good of an experience. But that is, when we're talking about the experience you have with customer service, that's about the claims process. There are also coverage problems that we see after disasters that are harder to solve. And the survey says that after a fire, about 2/3 of disaster survivors find themselves underinsured. With that stat, the insurance industry agrees. They've put out information as well that that number is about 66% of people find themselves underinsured. But our organization does surveys of disaster survivors, and we ask them about how much is that gap. And it's on average 6 figures. So it can be, that amount is just a little too much for people to be able to really cover in different ways. So they have to make hard financial decisions on how they're going to rebuild, or if they are able to, or if they have to buy a property elsewhere. So in the fires that we have worked in Colorado, 46% of Black Forest fire survivors were underinsured, and 54% of Woodland Heights and High Park fire survivors were underinsured. So it's a little less in those recent disasters. In California, where we've worked disasters too, around 66%, but it's more around 200,000, 300,000 that people are underinsured by an average of. So these are really big gaps that we're talking about. So when you review your declarations page, we want to make sure that you understand what's inside your policy. And your policy will look like this. It might look a little different, but it has 4 main buckets of coverage. And you want to make sure that you are focusing in on that coverage A, that dwelling coverage. That's the amount you have to rebuild your property if need be. You also want to take a look at the other buckets of coverage, and then make sure you have things like, your loss of use coverage, what that amount is, and what your deductibles are. So this policy has 2 separate deductibles. So if you do have a percentage deductible for a different type of loss, it's really important to understand this because it is a big difference in different policies. So what matters for homeowners? It's about getting that coverage A limit right, about buying the most extended replacement cost coverage that you have, increasing your building code upgrade coverage if possible, and also your sewer water backup. If you can increase that, that is a huge piece that matters in insurance. Making sure you have replacement cost coverage as opposed to actual cash value. And then for homeowners and renters, again, it's really important to know what your deductible is, whether or not it's a dollar amount or a percentage. You might have both, like the example we just saw. How much you have in your loss of use or additional living expense coverage. That's another piece where you might have a dollar limit, you might have a time limit, you might have both within your policy. The only way to find out is to get a copy of that policy and take a look in the fine print. And then scheduling your valuables and knowing what your exclusions are. Those are 2 big things that make a difference. But again, we want homeowners to focus on getting that big coverage A number right. How much do you have per square foot? So you take your coverage A limit and you divide that by your square footage, and that will be what you have. I'm going to go back a second. See if you can get a local contractor to come out and estimate what that replacement cost would be. But really, you can talk to a human being, talk to your insurance agent. Just make sure you're taking notes and following up in writing to make sure that your insurance goals are known. So another question you can ask someone at your Thanksgiving dinner is, have you been working from home much, and how's it going? Are you working? Where are you working? Where's your new home office? Is it your bedroom? Are you competing with your children for Wi-Fi for their distance learning, or or not? Have you set up something new? But keep in mind that your home business, anything in your home that is business equipment, usually has a sublimit in your insurance policy. So if you have created an office space now in your home, just make sure that you take a look in your policy and see if there is a limit on that equipment. You can always add endorsements to your insurance policy. So some of those things, if you take a look and you see that you may need more coverage, you can add coverage again for your home business, for your any scheduled items for sewer, water, building code. You can add coverage to plug any holes that you might find when you do your insurance checkup. And then for your contents, we want to make sure that, I said schedule your items a little bit. So they're inside an insurance policy. There's often a list of sublimits, so dollar amounts for different categories of items. You want to make sure you insure your contents for replacement value, but also be aware of the sublimits in your policy. And then consider scheduling anything valuable and your business equipment. So what you can ask at your Thanksgiving dinner is, what would you grab if you only had 5 minutes to evacuate? So that'll start thinking about, what's really special? What is either irreplaceable or very valuable? Those valuable items may need to have an endorsement added. You might need to schedule those items. You want to include that when you talk to your agent and have an insurance checkup. And then on the right, I have one list from one insurance company. Each insurance company has a different amount that they have for each categories of what some common dollar amounts for scheduled items are, just to keep that in mind. But usually what you would take if you had, when you're asked in peacetime and not, in the throes of an evacuation. Those are the things that are valuable. Again, that is what you would want to even maybe write down and put in or near your go bag of, if you do have a small amount of time, what you would want to grab and where that's located in case someone else has to grab it for you. And then document the details. It's so important to create a home inventory. This is one of the pieces that disaster survivors often say is the hardest part of a recovery, recreating everything that they had lost in a disaster. So one way you can be proactive is to make a home inventory, and you take your smartphone and just walk around, take pictures or a video of everything, open up drawers, open up closets, make sure that you are just documenting it. It will be a great memory jogger. You don't have to submit it to your insurance company in advance of a claim. It's for you to drop on if you do need to create that list, if you do have a loss. So this is one of our, again, our preparedness action steps that we want you to take, and it's an extremely important one. Again, it's also important to save that in a safe place. You don't want to leave it in your home somewhere where if something did happen, it would also be damaged or destroyed. So if you save it, if you're comfortable with saving it in the cloud or sending it, attaching it to your own email and sending it to yourself, that's one place that you can have it. But if you don't really know what the cloud is and you don't really know how to access it, maybe it's better to have a hard copy sent to your sister who may live in another state. However, if you don't trust her to keep it in a safe place, don't send it to her. You want to make sure that, one, you have an inventory, it's in a safe place off-site, but also that you are using technology that you know how to access if need be. Okay, so another preparedness action step that we have is to take time and do an insurance checkup. And that means that we want you to go and meet, probably over the phone, since of everything that's happening these days, with your insurance agent. Communicate with them your insurance goals, that you want to be covered in the worst case scenario. If you had a total loss, that you would be able to rebuild your home and move back in. That is your goal, that you would have enough to get back home. Take notes during your conversation. You can follow up with an email just to make sure that there's some paper trail there that you had this conversation. And, follow up if you have any unanswered questions. Go over scenarios, really talk about it, because like we mentioned, insurance is a complicated product. So, it's important to take the time to understand it and understand how it works. So we have, again, a list that we'll be sending you, uphelp.org/checkup, on questions to ask your insurance agent. All right, and some of those questions are, will the policy cover me from if I need to rebuild? What types of losses are covered and what is not covered? How long will my additional living expenses be covered? Will the insurance have enough to be able to bring my building up to code if you live in an older building? And we have a whole long list ready for you. And then just to keep in mind that flood is not covered under most policies. So any water that comes from above, from rain, that would be covered, but if the water is rising from below, that's usually considered flood, and that's almost always excluded from your policy. The thing to keep in mind is you can add coverage. One option is through the National Flood Insurance Program, but there is a 30-day waiting period for that policy to start. So you do have to purchase it, and then the coverage kicks in 30 days later. So if you see a really big storm happening, coming your way, and your weatherman telling you it'll be there in 2 days, you should still buy flood insurance since you have that kind of weather that you're concerned about, but knowing that it will take 30 days. And there are also limits. There's only about the max you can get under the National Flood Insurance Program is $250,000 for rebuilding your structure, $100,000 for contents that's separate and needs to be added a lot of times, and it does not include additional living expense coverage. So the next question you can ask is, who would you stay with if need be? If you had a flood damage and you didn't have that cover, you couldn't live in your home, it was red tagged, you had to live with another family member, who at your Thanksgiving dinner would take you in? Who would you live with? That's one conversation starter. And who would be the last person on your list? we want you to make sure that you update that safety net as well. So you're all going to do this because you're going to reach out to your insurance agent or broker and do a home insurance checkup. But it's important to know that there are certain times where it's really important to review your coverage at your renewal. But if you've also had any big changes, like if you're doing a big renovation, if you've been sheltering in place and realize that your kitchen does not work for you and you've lined up a great person to remodel it, just make sure you're communicating that with your insurance company, that you've done a renovation. If someone moves into your home that's not part of your family, or like your direct family, like your children, then you might need to specifically add them on a policy or have them get their own insurance for their belongings. If you are now working from home, or if you're participating in a shared economy in any way, you want to check your insurance. If there's a change to your marital status, if you're married or if a spouse moves out or you get divorced, that's another good time to update your safety net. But also if you get a dog, it's really important that if you take a look in the fine print, because in some policies, some breeds of dogs are not covered in your insurance. And if you are talking to someone and they say, oh, I can't complain, we want to let you know that with insurance, there is a complaint department. So in Colorado, this is the Colorado Division of Insurance. And if you ever have trouble with your insurance, there is a toll-free number there you can call to file your complaint. But if you are having a claim and you really need them to look into your policy, you have to file an official complaint. So that's just another tip we wanted to give you. We also want to let you know that United Policyholders is here if you do have a claim. We have an extensive library of information. So if you ever do need us for that reason, we want you to make sure that you get a complete copy of your policy, that you find out what your loss of use benefits are, that you start a claim diary and save all your receipts, take pictures of your damage, and know that we are here for you at claim time. uphelp.org is our website, and it's got an extensive library for everything. So if you do know someone who was affected by the recent wildfires, we have disaster recovery help libraries for them on our website. That's another thing that you can talk about if you guys know anyone who's been affected. Again, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your lunchtime with me today. Our website is uphelp.org. We have more buying tips. We have claim help from disaster survivors, and we have links to government help, like we mentioned, the Division of Insurance Complaint Department, all kinds of sample letters and claims forms. And so we urge you to take a look at our website. And again, have a happy Thanksgiving. We hope that you do so in a safe way. And if you're talking about insurance and you want someone to find more information, we have these presentations in the intensive version. So they're a little longer and a little more in depth on how to do a home insurance checkup. You can find those at uphelp.org/prepareco, Prepare Colorado, Prepare CO. So thank you so much for spending your lunch with me again, and happy Thanksgiving.